Good evening, Mayor, councillors. I'm Liz Faber. I'm the president of the Strata Council at the Woodward Building on 6th Street. I also have joining me a delegation here in the room, and also many people online who aren't able to join us in person, aren't physically able to get here. The changes to 6th Street in front of the Woodward are having profound and negative impacts on Woodward residents. Losing access to the loading zone in front of the Woodward Building is inhibiting access, increasing vulnerability of and threatening the safety of our residents. Our residents are upset, angry, and really worried for their safety and their property. First, since its inception, a large proportion of the Woodward residents are elderly and vulnerable. They rely on the loading zone directly in front of the building for first responders, sometimes several times a week, handy dart and other accessible transport, easy access to vehicles for loading and unloading, deliveries and moves. We recognize that after dialogue with us, the city has agreed to put a loading zone at the other end of the block, about 60 meters, 65 meters away, but very out of sight of residents. However, in practice, with taxis queuing, the right turn lane, vehicles in the right turn lane, few vehicles are operationally able to use this as a zone. Many of our senior residents are already struggling and are strongly concerned for their safety. Vera Botterell, an 80-year-old resident in the building, relies on mobility aids and struggles to access the handy dart that she needs to be able to attend her appointments. Often the handy dart itself is not even able to park in the temporary zone, and she's struggling to access it when it does. She and many others worry about the significant added distance she must travel particularly during icy and wintering conditions, and about her increased vulnerability to falling, difficulty standing, and waiting in the cold for her transport. Herb Wood, who has Parkinson's and relies on a walker and wheelchair, shares similar concerns and relies on deliveries to meet his daily needs. Already, residents are reporting not being able to receive deliveries, particularly from those large vehicles. This includes items needed for day-to-day living, mobility aids, food. Furthermore, residents are significantly worried about the impact of the loss of having access to approximate loading zone on their property value. And we've had realtors give us very quotes of significant losses to the property value. While for those of us who are able-bodied, may be able to travel the block, seniors and vulnerable residents struggle with this. We cannot forget our elders. Second, to be frank, the lack of consultation and communication on these changes was abysmal. We received 2 days' notice via general notice slid under the front door on the floor. There was no engagement with the strata or residents about these major changes in the area, despite a motion council passed in May about recognizing the need to consult and advise local residents and businesses on significant changes. Residents, frankly, are feeling ignored and forgotten, despite many being born or longstanding residents of New Westminster and having given significant portions of their lives to build this community. Residents have been paying property taxes in New Westminster, some for their whole life, and deserve to have their safety taken into account. Consultations with residents need to happen early, before decisions are made, in order to build a community that meets the needs of all its residents, and not just those that are younger and able-bodied. If the consultation had happened, we are certain early solutions could have been found. Third, it is the permanent placement of the previously temporary bus stop in front of the Woodward that led to a loss of this loading zone. Residents are concerned about the negative downstream impacts that this has already brought. Criteria to select placement of stops needs to be optimal not only for traffic flow, but also to consider the needs of an important ingredient, people and the local residents. There are a number of other viable locations that I won't be able to talk to because of time, but certainly one is north of Princess Street, where the stop was previously in front of commercial businesses and the new rental building that is there. There is also one just north of the 6th Avenue and 6th Street intersection, which also, for all of those, would be in front of commercial businesses and not in front of a residential building. I want to acknowledge my thanks to the Mayor and Councillor Fontaine, Councillor Campbell, and engineering department staff for speaking with us. We understand that cities evolve and change. However, these changes and plans need to ensure they're not causing harm, particularly to our elderly and vulnerable population, in favor of those that are more able. There is still time to course correct. We ask the mayor and councillors to return the loading zone to where it has been for almost 30 years, directly in front of the Woodward, and help keep seniors at home. We also ask the council, if it was your 95-year-old mother relying on access to the zone to meet her daily needs, what would you do? Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. Councillor Campbell.
Hi, Liz. Good to see you and many of the others that I had a chance to speak with. One of the things that concerned me when we were talking was this understanding about safety, right? And I know we talked a lot about what does safety mean, and I shared, if my daughter says to me she feels unsafe, I want to know specifically what that means. And so I appreciated that conversation. And I appreciated that one of the main things that was identified was access for firefighters and emergency services to your building. And so I'm glad the fire...
Councillor Minas.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First, want to thank Liz for coming down, and my apologies for not being there on Sunday due to a personal matter. I want to apologize to all the people back there as well. I have a few questions for the staff, and just wondering, why was consultation with residents and businesses either skipped or minimized before advancing this, as well as what alternatives were studied, and why was this specific location chosen?
Director of Engineering, is that?
Yes, through the chair. So in terms of engagement, I believe that the staff my staff in engineering, that is, have met with Liz and expressed regret that the way that the details of this project at time of construction were communicated were not great. And we've acknowledged that there are some learnings that will be applied to future projects. Having said that, there were a couple of rounds of engagement prior to this time of construction that addressed the overall uptown streetscape vision and the design details for the changes that were to be designed on 6th Street. So we acknowledge that that's a tricky bit of engagement to communicate on, and it's a challenging time for people to become engaged because it still feels quite abstract at those times. So we're taking note of this and really doubling down on figuring out how we can better engage during these planning stages of projects and really find a way to better reach people. In terms of the bus stop location, a number of factors go into deciding when to relocate or locate bus stops. So I won't get into the details because I could nerd out on this all evening, but there are a number of factors, including bus operations, the proximity to bus routes that people transfer to, safety considerations, distance from intersections, the length of the stop matters. All of these factors go into the proximity to other stops. All of these factors and some additional ones go into selecting locations for bus stops. I don't think I need to tell anybody that 6th and 6th is an extremely busy place in the city. So the 106 is one of the busiest bus routes that we have in the city and also in the region. So the location of these stops really matters. And this particular location matters for an additional reason, that being that the buses that run on 6th Avenue are transfer points. So all of this goes into consideration. While I've got the floor, if you'll just indulge me on this location, one more point. This particular stop is really long. It's future-proofed. So what staff are doing now is reviewing the length of that stop and seeing if there might be an opportunity in the short term for now to see if it could be shortened so that there's a specifically designated handy dart location. It's not a promise, but it is something that staff are looking at to see if Coast Mountain Bus Company and TransLink would be amenable to considering that, given the input that we've received.
Thank you. I do have a couple of questions. You have answered part of the second question, but I'll just put it out there along with the other question. How will this impact the handy dart access, loading zones, and deliveries for seniors and businesses, especially when they've already been going there for the last whatever time they've been using that place? It doesn't make sense to me that all of a sudden changing this makes it better for transportation or the bus route, as well as what metrics will staff use to evaluate success or failure of this stop once it's installed?
Director of Engineering.
So through the chair, the loading zone has shifted a few meters south of where it was before. So there remains a loading zone on this block of 6th Street. In addition, when the building just to the north of this location is completed, there will be an additional loading zone on that block as well, so just north of Princess Street. So there has been a shift in the location of the loading zone. It's slightly further south, or it depends on your perspective, whether it's slight or not. So it is further south. In terms of the handy dart can load in and drop people off in a bus stop, a designated bus stop, or a designated loading zone, or, you know, other curb space. So in terms of the handy dart, they have the entire block over which they're able to stop. So that hasn't changed from the previous condition. And I apologize, Councillor Manhas, I've forgotten the next question that you asked.
What metrics,
Oh, the metrics,
will
yes.
staff use to evaluate success or failure?
Yeah, so bus speed and reliability metrics are collected and analyzed by TransLink. It matters a lot that buses are able to move efficiently on this corridor. TransLink has metrics on how quickly the buses move, how long they're waiting or delayed on any route. And they also have bus boarding and alighting statistics. So they count the number of people that board the bus at this location and the number of people that get off the bus at this location. They also count the number of transfers at this location from this location to another bus stop nearby. So there's a lot of data that's collected. We know that this particular stop, because it's the 106, it's one of the most used bus routes in the region. That stop in particular is particularly important because people transfer from there to the routes on 6th Avenue. So, well, and from there potentially to the routes on 8th Avenue as well. So it's a very important location in the city, but also in the region.
One last question I have is, earlier we were all listening to about the rain garden in the West End. And there's supposed to be 24, you got the drains and you got the pipes and everything. Any possibility, because I know this is not a rain garden, and there's no pipes, no nothing, any possibility of moving it for these lovely folks that have been living there for the last 30, 40 years and have been used to certain standard of living. And for them, for people that are especially challenged with mobility issues, all of a sudden they have to find different ways and means of dealing with these issues. Is there any possibility of moving this to a different location?
Through the chair, in this instance, no. This has been determined for a variety of reasons that it is the right location, the most appropriate, most efficient, and best serving location for the bus routes in the vicinity and also for the loading zone. So I'd just like to reemphasize that the handy dart service can use the bus area and it can use the loading zone area, and there will be an additional loading zone area to the north upon completion of that project. So we are not considering a change in the location of either the bus stop or the loading zone in this instance.
There are delegations not going on, but if you have a point to make, yeah, please.
Thank you. I just wanted to correct something that has been said in this room and also elsewhere. The loading zone is not being shifted just a few meters south. It's a substantial number of meters. So right now, as I said, it's about 60 meters, 65 meters to the doorstop to where the new loading zone will be. So that is, for someone who is not able-bodied, that is a significant area to traverse, particularly in the winter, which there are a number of safety issues. Wonderful that you have flagged that the fire department is able to come, but there are a number of other safety issues which I have listed in my letters and today as well around the vulnerability of traversing that, particularly in wintry conditions and not having access directly outside. I also just wanted to underscore it's not just about handy dart. That's the only thing using the loading zone. It's a number of issues, number of transport vehicles that are being used to drop and unload and load deliveries, moves, which are not being accessed or are not otherwise accessible for people in the building. So it's not just an easy matter for them to move to another block. And then third, if I may, it's not, we are not against access to bus transport. We very much promote that. It is the location. And I appreciate that you say that that was chosen as the optimal location because of the bus length, et cetera. But there are other criteria which need to be included in any kind of transportation planning, which is the people and the residents who live there.
Thanks. Councillor Minhas.
Yeah, no worries. I just want to finish off by saying a couple of things. I appreciate the fact that we got amazing firefighters and they do a wonderful job of helping out whenever they can. But the true reality is that they cannot be there all the time to help these people. And they might need that loading zone for different purposes. So it's not that getting it approved, I mean, it's good that they're approving it, they're happy with it. But the challenge is what the residents in that building are facing is much different than what we're talking about over here. And the other fact of the matter is also that if the staff did not consult properly with the residents, and it's a lesson for us to learn, but this is also something that we hear time and time again. It's not the people's fault. We can't keep blaming the people that we're not going to listen to them. Sooner or later, we have to listen to them. Time and time again, whether it's Woodward's Building, whether it's 6th Avenue and 2nd Street, Spencer, the elementary school, whether it's London Street, whether it's the Rain Gardens, these are happening way too often. And the people are tired of this. We need to do a better job of this. We need to do collectively a better job of this. And we are failing. We're not giving them any options. And I think it's a travesty that we are putting our residents, our business community in a position of a no-win situation. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Fontaine.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Liz. Thank you to all the residents who've come out, and thank you for appreciate the invitation to come out to a very packed Strata meeting with this one item on the agenda. So I've been listening very carefully tonight, and I live not far from there. So I live just down a little bit north of the particular piece of property that we're referring to. And I know when it first started getting cut up on the road, I thought it was a pipe replacement or something. I really, and I think a lot of folks in your building thought the same thing as me when they walked by, that it was going to be a pipe replacement. It wasn't until I heard from the media that there was a new bus stop, et cetera, that I connected all the dots, and that's where you guys kind of invited me to come in. So, but what was striking to me is I've walked by there at least a dozen times since I met with you, is, and I wouldn't mind if staff could, I appreciate the optimalness of where this particular spot is, but what I'm struggling with tonight is that we have a brand new rental building right next to the Woodward's. That building, I'm told by the residents when it was constructed, there was a lot of talk about how the folks in that building were going to use transit. That's why there was less parking requirements, et cetera. The residents were all told that. The assumption was that there would be a bus stop put back right into there. And we've ripped that entire sidewalk, like everything's gone. We ripped everything out and we're rebuilding it. And this is where I'm struggling with this tonight, is why couldn't we have incorporated, it would have only been literally like 50 feet or less to have had the bus stop at the corner of Princess and 6th, but on the north side versus on the south side. That to me is where it all comes down to, and it just seems so basic. I'm hard pressed to see how just moving it there is that much more optimal than, I'm not an engineer, granted, transportation engineer, but it just seems like, to me, given, as Liz said, the human impact and the amount of elders and seniors who are going to be so impacted by moving this, why we couldn't have just left that sidewalk alone as it was and moved the bus stop to where we were actually rebuilding the entire sidewalk. I'd love to hear from staff just if that was considered and ruled out, for what reason that was ruled out while we were rebuilding that sidewalk anyways.
So Director of Engineering, I think its question is about what locationing again.
Yes, so through the chair, the bus stop, so as I mentioned earlier, a number of factors go into selecting locations for stops. Two of the factors that I didn't mention in my previous response are, number one, stop spacing guidelines. So the distance between stops, there are guidelines around that. Right now in Uptown, the stops are very close together. So we are working with TransLink and Coast Mountain Bus Company to reduce the number of stops overall and consolidate stops. So that's one factor. Taking into account the stop spacing guidelines, this location sort of wins, if you will. The other factor is one that I mentioned earlier, which is the location of the stop relative to the transfers that a significant proportion of the people either boarding or alighting from the bus make. So 6th Avenue is a very important connection route. So having the stop closer to where those connections occur is overall better for passengers who rely on the bus service, particularly those who may have mobility challenges and struggle to travel greater distances between those transfers. It is better to have locations of high transfer closer together. A third operational thing is that the closer to a major intersection, the better operationally, because it reduces the risk of the bus getting caught behind traffic as it waits to pull out. So in this particular location, the bus is actually pulling into the stop. It's not stopping in traffic. It has to pull in because it's a timing stop. So the closer it is to the intersection, the greater chance it has of efficiently pulling out of that stop to get back on its route.
Okay, that's a good segue for my next question then. Just around the lane configuration in front of there, can staff confirm for me how many lanes will be left once this new bus stop is in? Will it be 2 lanes? Will there be parking on any of that area on that particular part of the block in front? I'm told that there's going to be more than 2 lanes, but I'm again struggling to see how that'll be configured once the project's complete.
Director of Engineering.
Yes, so through the chair, the bus will stop in its own lane. So there will be a through lane of traffic. As you get closer, further south on that block, there is a right turn pocket adjacent the the loading zone. So the curb actually jogs in as you go south closer to the intersection with 6th Avenue. So there will be the through lane. The buses will pull into their own stop out of moving traffic. And then as you move south, approaching 6th Avenue, the curb goes in. That will be the loading area, and there will be a right turn pocket.
Okay, so from,
No parking on the block either side. It's, that entire block is the loading zone and the bus stop.
okay, and just to clarify as well, just while we're on this topic of parking, I know it's on Princess versus right in front, but is there going to be parking allowed, for example, in front of the Legion? Because that parking right now has been limited. When the building, the rental building is done, will there be parking there or drop-off zone or a loading zone on that side of the street, on the east side of the street?
Okay, so
Where it was before?
Director of
through
Engineering,
the
if you have
chair,
that
so
answer, we're getting out
I'm,
of scope. But
yeah, I might need to get back to you
Okay.
on that to make sure that I'm understanding the question. I've got staff sending me answers as they're listening in, so.
Okay, I don't need that answer tonight, but I know the Legion is wondering whether or not the parking and the loading area that they've lost will be returned. So perhaps that's a question we can answer later. My understanding is consultation was done, Liz, with stakeholders like TransLink and others, and it is unfortunate that you didn't have that consultation with the Strata, so I will acknowledge that. The one thing I want to get clarity from staff is on this loading zone. So I've been, again, back and forth around there. I've noticed the temporary loading zone that's there right now is often occupied by taxis. So if somebody's trying to get a delivery or something in there, the Amazon Prime and stuff are just driving around the block because that particular loading zone is either too small or it is now occupied by taxis. How do we monitor that to ensure that the residents and the businesses in that area actually have that as a loading zone?
Director of Engineering?
So there isn't active monitoring of loading zones to make sure that people are using them properly. If there is a chronic problem with a loading zone being misused, then I encourage people to call parking services and we'll deploy somebody to go and investigate and have a look. I don't know in this particular instance what's happening there, so I'll not try to answer a question I don't fully understand. In terms of taxis, so the way that block worked before is that there was a taxi stand there, so it was intended for taxis. In addition to a loading area, the taxi zone has now been relocated to 6th Avenue, so we're anticipating that taxi waiting and the explicit area for taxis will function as intended. Did I fully answer the question, or was there another part to it?
No, I think you did respond, but just to clarify, is the capacity for the taxis the same after the construction as before?
I'm just,
My understanding is the taxi capacity shrunk, and that's why the taxis are parking in the loading zone, because the new ones on 6th Avenue are not, the capacity isn't as wide.
so staff tell me that it should be the same or more than it was before for the taxis.
Okay. Next up, a question regarding Handy Dart. It was mentioned tonight that the Handy Dart can be in the bus stop. The residents expressed to me some deep concern around that because the Handy Dart does take some time. They don't want to rush people in. It takes time to use the lift and break. And this, as was mentioned earlier, the 106 is one of the busiest bus. It's always going. How is this going to work if their Handy Dart is in and the bus comes up? Like, where is the bus supposed to go if the Handy Dart is there for upwards of 7, 8, 9 minutes, depending on loading or longer?
So through the chair,
Director,
the Handy Dart has the option of using either the bus stop or the loading zone area. So if the loading zone area is available, Handy Dart is likely to use that. That would be their preference, is our understanding. As I mentioned earlier in this discussion, we are going to go back to Coast Mountain and TransLink to see whether we can, for the time being, carve out a section of that very long bus stop and just have it designated specifically to support handy darts. So the point is really well made, and we don't want anybody having to rush with that service more than necessary. So that's something I'm going to take away and discuss with staff, and they'll connect with Coast Mountain and TransLink to see if we can't do a bit better with the bus stop area that's currently contemplated.
So my last question is pertaining to if council were to bring a motion forward directing staff to move the bus stop from the south side over to the north side of Princess, and that were to pass, what would happen in terms of your discussions with TransLink?
Does the Director of Engineering wish to speculate?
Mr. Mayor, I'm not speculating. I'm asking a question. That's very derogatory of you to make that comment.
Councillor?
Yeah.
The question was speculative. The question asked.
All questions are
asked the direct-
speculative, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor, please maintain order. The question is speculative. Thank you. Director of Engineering?
We'll need you to tell me
So
that.
through the chair.
Sorry,
Sorry.
Councillor?
Didn't catch that.
Thank you. Please maintain order. Thank you. Sorry, Director of Engineering.
Through the chair, so should council pass a motion directing staff to look into shifting the bus stop, we would take that away and consult with Coast Mountain and TransLink and report back on what we heard.
Okay, thanks, Liz, for coming out. I will give you my assurance. I know I've talked to Councilor Minhas. We will try to bring an emergency motion to council asking that be debated. Can't be done tonight. We'll do our best, but you've heard tonight a lot of information, but we will make our best attempt to see if we can have that bus stop moved to a location that is more people-friendly and senior-friendly. So, thanks.
Lanes.
Sorry, delegation is not usually an exchange, and you've had more than your 5 minutes.
The previous
But
one certainly was, so I hope you can grant me a few.
yeah, I'm
responses.
just
Thank you.
quick. If you can be quick.
Great, thank you. I was down at the construction zone today, speaking with the team there and looking at where the curve would be going in. I asked about the 2 lanes. They suggested it would be, but also looked doubtful because it was clear that there would not be room for a bus as well as a full lane of traffic to go. So I really would request the engineering department to look at that in person, perhaps not just on the schematics, to see in reality how that would be operating, because everyone who has seen it would agree that that is not feasible. Thank you.